Chalk one up for the NRA, the National Rifle Association in good old Florida. The state's Republican governor widened the state's notorious Stand Your Ground law by allowing citizens to fire warning shots to scare off potential attackers. The case was a byproduct of a woman who received a 20-year sentence for firing a gun at an abusive husband despite the fact that he was not injured. Now, of course, that revved up emotions, and it is easy to be sympathetic to an abused wife, but this is, of course, in stark contrast to the high-profile Trayvon Martin case in which a seemingly overzealous neighborhood watch captain named George Zimmerman shot and killed an unarmed black teenager who he feared might kill him based on the fact that he was wearing a hoodie. The highly controversial Stand Your Ground defense in Florida states that people who use deadly force to defend themselves rather than retreating to avoid confrontation can be immune from prosecution if they have a reasonable fear of serious injury. This law is quite different from most states where one must not only have a reasonable fear of serious injury, but there must also be an actual threat of injury beyond merely a fear, and they must also retreat in order to claim self-defense. The problem with this law is that it rarely, if ever, gives the courts the required burden beyond a reasonable doubt to find someone guilty of murder. Pretty much anyone can shoot and kill someone and say they had a reasonable fear, whatever that is, that they were going to be seriously injured or killed. The law will also create more racial tension since one's fear of another is a subjective one. It's in that person's mind. And it'll be up to the courts to decide what is a reasonable fear. If, as in the Trayvon Martin case, someone feels a sense of fear because a black teenager is wearing a hoodie, then lawyers will argue back and forth about the reasonableness of that fear, which will create more racial polarization in the media who loves to jump on these kind of stories. It is creating a clear out-of-jail card for people who should be judged based on the circumstances. If a black kid with a hoodie is walking along a sidewalk and looks at someone in an intimidating manner, it should be up to a jury to determine the circumstances that led someone to shoot and kill that young kid. It is ridiculous that a jury finds someone not guilty merely on the fact that the killer had a reasonable fear that the kid would cause serious injury or death. A 90-year-old lady who has only seen black people on the evening news or on a rerun of Sanford and Son could make a strong argument in court that she had a reasonable fear of any black guy walking on the street. Of course, it's easier to be sympathetic to the old lady than someone like George Zimmerman, who is perfectly capable of retreating against the younger kid in Trayvon Martin. The elderly lady and Zimmerman should not be trained on a law that allows them to shoot anyone when they have a reasonable fear, nor should they be allowed to fire warning shots that may ricochet and even kill themselves or others in their household. This is another step in the NRA and the Tea Party conservative rights agenda towards all-out anarchy. Self-defense is not a crime. It's a constitutional right, barked Marion Hammer, the NRA lead propaganda salesman, otherwise known as lobbyist in the Sunshine State. Prosecutors have been violating the rights of Florida citizens, and this law will stop that. It is also my constitutional right, Mr. Hammer, to lower the hatchet on you and rip on you and your right-wing anarchist organization for being a dangerous political money machine that is making our country a flat-out dangerous place to live in.